So again, thanks for coming. Just a couple housekeeping things. For those that don't know, the bathrooms are at the back by the pool table. Just please plan a safe ride home tonight. We have food at the back, and yeah, use our hashtag SMediaUnplugged. Terry Bell, who is one of our dealer specialists here on our sales team, is going to be videoing an event for us to share with our team. As you mostly know, we have a huge part of our team is remote, so we're going to be sharing this with them and kind of slicing and dicing to share with everyone on social media that couldn't be here today too. So with that being said, we are going to introduce our facilitator. Most of you in here will know him. So I've got to read this off because I couldn't memorize it. So Jordan McFarlane is the manager of Cultivator powered by Connexus, Canada's first credit union-led incubator, proudly serving Saskatchewan. Jordan has led the Cultivator project from strategy and research to implementation and execution. Having incubated 30+ companies to date, Cultivator is quickly making a heavy impact in the Saskatchewan startup ecosystem and was recently accepted to the Global Accelerator Network. So let's get him up here. And we have a little slight change of plans here. Unfortunately, Marshall cannot be here today. He's very ill, so we are going to, I'm going to just introduce myself and sit down on the panel as well with the guys. So we'll welcome both co-founders, Regan Hinchcliffe, who's co-founder and director of our customer success department, and Taylor Taylor, co-founder, and he's director of product and operations. So we'll get to that.
Check. Okay, we're good to go. First off, I think we should give a huge round of applause to the S Media team for hosting the event in this beautiful new space. Let's give a big round of applause to the team. Also, thank you for letting me moderate tonight. Excited to be here, connected with you guys. We're going to ask a few questions. We're going to get the audience involved tonight too, so if you do have questions, we'll have kind of a halftime question show and then toss it up at the end as well. But I think the first burning question is just, if you guys can tell us a little bit about S Media. What exactly does S Media do? What is it all about? What are we learning about here tonight? And
Testing. Can you hear me? All right, yeah. So that's definitely a question that we get quite often. People don't typically know what we do. We've been making some waves and growing here, but it's definitely a mystery. And so, well, in essence, we're a technology company. We weren't always a technology company, but we are now because we do develop software as a service. But what we are is, as a technology company, we developed predictive analytics and automation for specifically brick and mortar, and more specifically right now our target market in the automotive sector. So we have developed the ability to use machine learning to sort of predict who's in the market for what products at certain times in their buying cycle, and to be able to help automate the right type of advertisements at every stage of a car shopper's online buying cycle. So really, those creepy ads that you guys get when you're looking for specific products and those obviously relevant advertisements, that kind of stuff is coming from S Media.
awesome, that's great. And is S Media, you guys are selling that like local dealerships here in Regina, Saskatchewan? What's that looking like, kind of customer-wise?
Sure. So we started off, like when we began the company, we were a social media company, kind of doing photography for nightclubs and connecting that with their Facebook pages. And we sat in a car dealership showroom at one desk. And anyway, so that car dealership, we managed their Facebook page, and that was Titan Automotive, was our first car dealership. And because our business partner and mentor, Terry Leach, was in the car industry, he was sort of pushing us towards the fact that it's a very lucrative industry and obviously very competitive, but if we can start catering our services to car dealerships, we could potentially turn the company into something. And so then Mercedes-Benz Regina, and then our first kind of like local client outside of our network was Barber Motors in Weyburn, so we drove down there. And yeah, we started just driving around car dealerships trying to manage their Facebook pages. Once we started getting the automation and the database stuff though, that's when we really started taking off, and we started developing cadences for sales to be able to call dealerships, and now we have about 600 car dealerships in North America, both
Wow.
in Canada and the United States.
That's awesome. Great to see a Saskatchewan company with such global traction here, which is really cool. I know we got a few technical folks in the crowd, so we wanted to jump in a little bit into the product side, and maybe we can translate it for those who aren't as technical, but can we talk a little bit about S-Media's current product stack, what that looks like, and kind of what we're doing on that front?
Sure, yeah, and Taylor being the head of our product will be able to speak more to the developments we're doing right now, but one of the foundation of our company and the products that we build is something called our digital test drive metric. And that is part of the predictive analytics part of our company, but really we identified a problem in brick and mortar, like in contrast to e-commerce, for instance, where Amazon can track pretty much every dollar it spends, and then people purchase credit with their credit cards online. It's really easy to figure out return on investment of their advertising. But in brick and mortar, people are doing most, if not all, of their research online. They're remaining anonymous throughout that buying cycle, and then they are walking into the dealership, or even in phones, and walking into the, jump.ca, just walking into the store and they want to still see the phone, they still want to drive the car, and get a real feel for it. And so the purchasing in person, and there's this information gap in between. And so our digital test drive metric, we've been able to use machine learning to analyze hundreds of different data points of consumer behavior. So essentially like body language. When we communicate, we're speaking mostly through our body. And so we pick up on certain cues. So when someone test drives a vehicle in person, a salesperson can pick up really easily if they are going to purchase that car just based on body language alone. But since most of the buying cycle is online, salespeople aren't able to do that anymore, right? So that problem exists now because now the online buying cycle is online. So we've been able to find, using machine learning, a bunch of behaviors that we were then able to then correlate to purchase intent and even further to sales. So we were able to bridge the gap between people committing to certain behaviors when shopping for a vehicle, and then when they do these behaviors, we were able to find a very strong relationship between these behaviors and sales, and that's what allows us to deliver our automated advertising, and that's also what allows us to really connect the digital space with a dealership's business outcomes.
That's awesome. Taylor, did you want to add on to that?
So what we do is we actually create ads, and we're actually able to target people based off of that engaged prospect metric. So we're not just targeting every single person out there. It's a lot more calculated than that. We're actually finding those people that are actually interested in buying and showing ads to those specific people, just to clarify that a little bit more.
Maybe, Taylor, just to keep it with you there, I think, when we talk about products, we talk about a technology startup. Let's talk a little bit about your product and development team, how you utilize both, local and remote work, and sort of what that looks like for S-Media.
Sure, yeah. So our product team is based in Regina here. We have Trevor Ash, myself, and John Hashem. And our development team is based out of Dhaka, Bangladesh. So let me just put that into perspective for you guys. Dhaka is 12 hours ahead of us. So we do not share any working hours with our development team, not 1 hour. So they start work at 8 p.m. our time, okay, and then they end work at 4 a.m. our time. So we do not share any working hours with them. So there are some challenges with that. I get asked all the time, like, why in the world would you take a development team, someone that's like a team that's so reliant on communication and collaboration, and throw them across the world and expect communication to be easy, right? So I think the way that we started with remote work, I guess it all started when we first started the company. Like Regan was saying, we started at one single desk, Marshall, Regan and I, and we eventually moved up into a much larger space, about 10 feet by 10 feet. That's not a joke, it was 10 feet by 10 feet.
All these offices, the side offices, are named after our old places, like the showroom, the key room, the detail room.
Yeah, it was pretty tight. Like you'd spin your chair and you'd run into the guy behind you. So with that, there were a lot of challenges. Being a bootstrap company, we didn't have any outside investment into the company. So we had to rely on, like we had no space, so to get employees into our space, it just wasn't feasible. So we had to innovate and try to think of different ways. How could we possibly start driving our vision and building our products? So like talented people as well. So we decided, why don't we just go online, see if we can find some remote workers to help build our company. So we did that, and we went online, and we came across a really good resume. It was a developer in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and his name was Shuhan. And Shuhan actually helped us build out, honestly, our entire company.
He's still with us.
He's still with us, yeah. So he helped us build out our entire company and build out all of our products. And the work that he did was quite astounding. And after that, as we scaled and we moved up into another office, not this one, but the one prior to this, we had a challenge that we had to face. We had to decide whether or not we wanted to build a development team here in Regina or continue and build off of what we were doing in Dhaka and support Shuhan. So we did that. We built up a team in Dhaka. We have 9 developers there currently and 1 project manager and an office, exactly. And we're looking at scaling that team even further and potentially working on a new office space for them as well there. So Jordan, I guess to answer your question, how we utilize remote work to build successful products, I think it comes down to, they're a team. Like this is the thing, they're a team that just so happens, like a very efficient team I might add, that just so happens to be 12 hours away. You know what I mean? Like just across the world. So there's nothing too different about it. I think it just comes down to having flexible schedules and constant collaboration and constant communication.
That's awesome. So 24/7 productivity out of S Media. It's working around the clock. I like what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we like to say we're in like, I think 9 or 10 or 11 different time zones. So even more, that's like 27/7 or something like that.
I like it. Yeah, pushing the limits. That might lead nicely into a question here for Steph. Let's talk a little bit about culture, right? S Media known for strong culture. You know as a bit of a cultural guru from your background and the things you're doing here. How do you maintain strong company culture? You got a rapidly growing team, lots of success. Local and remote teams. Can you talk to us a little bit about culture and how you guys approach that?
Yeah, for sure. So first off, I guess, I was one of the first strategic hires for S Media, so I appreciate them bringing me in when they did, not 50 more employees down the line.
Get a director of people and culture.
So basically, kind of when I started here, we came in and focused, I guess, on the entire life cycle of an employee or a team, and looked at employer branding, looked at everything that was to the outside world facing into S Media, what was the recruitment strategies, all of those things, and just basically snowballed and built off that. A big thing here that we focus on is transparency amongst all the teams. Every person that you talk to in this company will have a good understanding of where they stand within the team in regards to performance. It's very, open and collaborative. We have people literally, like Regan said, all over the world. So we're heavy Slack users.
What's Slack?
What is Slack? It is a communication tool. So you can have specific Slack channels for teams. So every department at S Media has their own Slack channel that everyone can chime into, or you can direct message anyone in the company. You can video call through there, which we do a lot of. I've talked to every single person that works here on a video chat. So one team that I like to kind of focus when I'm talking about this on is our BDC team. So that is the team that's directly cold calling out to the dealerships. Jeffrey is our sales manager.
I think we got one of them
Yeah.
up front here on the double robot. Yeah.
Say hi, Jeffrey.
Take a bow. Hi, everybody.
He is our BDC sales manager. He's based out of Victoria, BC. His team is fully remote. We have people in Nicaragua, Spain, Panama, the Canary Islands, and just managing those schedules. But we built a lot of hype up over that team here. So we've integrated an app called Zapier that integrates with Slack. And basically, anytime anyone on the BDC team books a demo, it integrates into Slack. So anyone in the BDC team channel can follow along in there, and it's exciting. People get really jacked in here over the BDC Slack channel. They hit their goal the other day. It was they had 30 demos booked, and this place
There's
was
party parrots and everything.
yeah. Emojis. It was party parrot took over our office the other day. But yeah, there's just a lot of hype, a lot of support. Doesn't matter on the team. We make sure that leadership is jumping in on those morning meetings and keeping everyone up to date on where the company's at, initiatives that we're focusing on, and all of that. So it boils down to transparency and just the collaboration and the support from all the other departments.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, like as an owner of the company and an acting director, well, not acting, but a director, the whole concept of culture is really, it's like, how would we want to work? I mean, we've worked for ourselves for 8 years, and for me, I've had jobs before where, being able to put the extra effort into it and to mold my own way ended up getting me like fired. So the whole concept and trust, right? So culture, when you think about culture at your company, and when I think about culture here, it's not about the free food or the pool tables or the drinks of which we all have, and a cool office. We have it, but there's something greater that is like the whole of those parts, and really we have to ask the question like, what is that? And really, I think it comes down to automatic trust, right? When someone starts working here, they don't have to earn our trust, and I think what that does, and on top of the trust, too many processes to get things done. We have systems, we don't have process, and we trust our employees to do a good job, and we give them the freedom to do that job anywhere, anytime they want. And with that trust, that creative energy, they're not wearing, and we're not wearing, a certain level of armor that takes a lot of energy out of people in certain jobs with too much process and too much fear based in trust, fearful for their jobs and stuff. That armor weighs down our ability to be creative and to get things done. So when we talk about accountability, you're accountable and responsible to get your work done. You're free to do it and to do it when and where you need, and you have that trust to do it, and we know that you want to do a good job. So make your mark and mold your way in our company.
Awesome. I think like what really stood out to me from what you guys were talking about, like the trust and transparency, was just walking in here tonight and kind of stepping back and watching all the team members in their S Media shirts, just giving tours with such like sense of pride and ownership and picking up signs and doing stuff. So I think it was really just, if you looked around tonight, the amount of like pride and excitement people have to let people into the office really embodies that. So I think it's really cool to see that.
Well, they know they helped build this. Like, they know they're part of that because they remember all the things they did to grow that and the freedom we gave them to do it. So
it's awesome. One of the things we touched on a little bit, but wondering if you could tell us a little bit, Regan, about customer success. It's a pretty hot topic in the software as a service space. Wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on what exactly that is for the audience, but also sort of how S Media leverages that and uses it to their advantage and what the focus is there.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to put this in the right context here, but account management in sales is a pretty common word in a lot of organizations. There's an account management and sales, and what customer success is, it's neither those two. Customer success is really a consultative role, a proactive consultative role of helping customers be successful and achieve their business objectives by using your services. Their success is our success. So back in the day, we had account managers. I mean, I started cold calling dealerships, being like, hey, can I manage your Facebook page, to then making the sale and then having to manage them. But it was a very reactive approach to keeping our customers. And then when it was time to, when I became the director of the account management, Steffi and I were just kind of sitting there and being like, we should name this differently to kind of match a tech company. So we started looking up certain words that other companies use, and customer success came to the forefront online, and we're like, hey, customer success, that sounds pretty cool. Let's call it the customer success department, as if we just found something completely
Got a good
unique
ring to it.
it had a good ring to it, right? But it's so funny, once you put a name to something, or once you start tracking it, it becomes, you're able to start controlling it, or you're able to start manipulating it, and the name customer success, then all of a sudden, I was like, what is that? And I started looking it up, and I realized that customer success is like a paradigm shift in software as a service. And software as a service, kind of the unique business model is recurring revenue. So the business model is subscription based, and the paradigm shift was, back in the day, people had to purchase big hardware to get certain software at their company. So they'd invest millions of dollars, for instance, or hundreds of thousands of dollars in this hardware, and that just had to get updated every once in a while. But the relationship ended after the sale, because now you've bought a whole bunch of my stuff, and you can't just get rid of it. You're stuck with it now, because you can't just go get some more hardware and invest another $1 million in something new. And then the next paradigm shift from hardware was to software, right? But still, the software was CDs, and there wasn't a cloud that people could update the software. So really, the companies were still pretty tied in when they bought this software and invested in this software. And that relationship, once again, really ends after the sale. But in the cloud, where people have access to so many different services online, all that stuff is, this hardware is all servers now, and they host all this software in the cloud. People can just cancel a company by a click of a button now. They're not invested in it, they're paying a monthly subscription. So the paradigm shift is really that proactive approach, and not being reactive to the customer's need, but being proactive with the customers and figuring out, using data, how to approach our customers and figure out, why are they leaving us? So something called churn, it's considered a leaky bucket of software as a service. And that leaky bucket, before companies, they would always be gung-ho and excited about all the top-end sales they were getting. Oh, look at how much more revenue we got. But they weren't paying attention to how many customers they lost. And it's so much easier to lose those customers. So that leaky bucket is what we consider churn. And customer success is supposed to take a data-based approach to mitigating that churn and figuring out why customers are churning and why they're canceling products, so that they can then share that data with the department's products, so we can solve those problems. And then from the customer success standpoint, how do we approach our customers and help them be successful and connect our services and value to their business objectives, so that we're not just an advertising trinket. We are literally a partner, a trusted partner in their business that's helping them achieve business objectives.
That's awesome. I think really good description there of customer success, the importance it's got on S Media, and what it's doing for the future. And maybe we want to take a second. I know audience, we've thrown a lot at you to start, but maybe we'll throw it out for a quick audience question before we continue on with the pieces here. We got Kyle, CTO of Offstreet, sitting in the front's got a quick question if you want to throw that out. I don't think we got a mic for the audience.
He even said he was going to have the first
just
question.
Talk loudly, yeah, if we can.
He said it.
Right. So you guys are probably one of the only, or if not the only, venture-backed company in Regina. I'm just kind of curious what that experience was like for you raising venture money. Like, how did you guys find it? How are you meeting your obligations to those investors? And then, if one of the things in the startup world we get drilled into our head is like the venture numbers they want to hear, customer lifetime value, churn, all those numbers. Like, when did you start caring about them, if you did have to care about them?
Sure.
Really good question.
Give me that mic back out. Thanks. That's a good question. So, in like the bigger picture, Marshall would definitely have a better answer for you. But when we found out, okay, so really we were here in Regina, we were a tech company, but the whole identity of that wasn't really there. Like we were here, we didn't really know. We knew what we were, but we didn't know where we stood in the tech community or in any community at all. We just had our heads down and tried to do a good job. And then one day Marshall got invited to an investor like networking event in BC. And he brought some numbers that he was told to bring, right? And turns out like the lifetime value of our customers and the cost to acquire a customer was like amazing. And we didn't know that, but when these investors started seeing these numbers, all of a sudden we have debt financing companies and venture VCs coming and knocking at our door because of that. So what did it mean for us? What was the next part of the question?
I think maybe like when you started tracking that, would that be?
So we had those numbers. Marshall brought those numbers to this meeting, and that was used to get the interest, right? But when it comes down to like from a company-wide, like thinking about lifetime value and cost to acquire a client and retention and churn, really it was after that meeting, Marshall going down there, that it became important. And this would be, I think, 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, and that's when they became really important to our company.
Did that lead a little bit, I guess, Reed, maybe into what we talked about with customer success
Yes.
before, or did you really focus on that churn and that maintenance of customer? Yeah.
So churn then became, like, we always knew we didn't want to lose customers, but we didn't know to what extent does churn impact the multipliers of your company or the value of your company, right? And the lifetime value and the cost to acquire a client, like how those ratios actually impacted that, and like they're pretty substantial. Like if you can decrease the cost to acquire a client and then increase your lifetime value, like and have a certain level of software as a service revenue as well, like all those things that contribute to pretty intense multipliers to the whole valuation of your company.
That's awesome. Maybe we could do like one more audience question before we roll. I think is that a sharp-dressed young man over there? Is that Levi?
I'm actually 32.
32 years young. I like it.
This is a question for Boonsy, Stephanie. Two-part question. Number one, where'd you learn to become so awesome? Two, less important, but just curious about your recruitment strategy and how you guys go about hiring people. You guys have obviously staffed up quite heavily, and I know that historically it's been a challenge to get developers, product managers, whatever it might be, customer service in Regina. So just maybe speak to a little bit about your recruitment strategy as you guys have scaled up so much over a little bit.
Alright, so obviously you guys want me to plug Gas Buddy here. One of my mentors back there. So our recruitment strategy, so when I came on board here, like I said, we kind of focused on the employer branding parts. We looked at everything from social media to our careers page, the message that we were portraying to the outside world about what makes S Media unique to every other startup that's out there. So we, focused on building out our applicant tracking system and our job descriptions and everything like that. But really, I think the recruitment strategy here has been to not desperately hire any roles. We've take a while during our process, but every position we provide as much transparency into the role as possible. So, I mean, our office here right now is mainly sales, so for any of those roles, we would actually have people come into the office and hang out for an entire afternoon, sit on some calls. If they are a remote person, we have some kind of dummy demos that we send out to everybody so they can actually get a good look into what our BDC team does, what our dealer specialist team does, and what a potential performance review with our clients from a customer success standpoint would sound like, so they get the kind of the full sales cycle look into the roles. And it just gives that person an opportunity, if they are, you know, coming on here as a BDC person, it is a stepping stone. So if they're wanting to be kind of a full-fledged sales role, they get their feet wet in BDC and can kind of grow within the company that way. So desperately filling roles, just, you know, in my experience, it doesn't usually do well. You take the time and really look at your recruitment process and have those conversations. I listened to Richard Branson talk at a LinkedIn Talent Connect conference that I was at once, and I mean, personality is a big thing. You cannot train a personality. You can train skill sets and provide resources to get people to where they need to be, and that's kind of what we're building here at S Media. We're trying to bring in brilliant colleagues that everyone can kind of work off of and grow within their roles that way. So, yeah.
Awesome, I think that's a great
Does that
answer.
answer your question?
Yeah. I guess like just to piggyback onto that slightly, Steph, you guys seem to have done a really good job here of bringing people from outside of tech, maybe don't have a business-to-business software as a service background, maybe they're coming from different industries. You seem to do a great job of integrating them in. Is there any maybe like one thing that you focus on that really kind of brings them into the tech world that seems to have worked well for you, or is it, you know, the culture as a whole that contributes to that?
I think mainly it's culture. You know, this is a completely different organization that I was kind of coming from. It was a, you know, Gas Buddy was a development-focused, mainly development-focused organization coming into a sales organization. So there was a steep learning curve for me there as well, and in a completely different industry with automotive. So really kind of like boiling back to what makes us unique. We did a lot of heavy recruiting through LinkedIn and just having kind of networking and having those initial conversations with reaching out through there and having those initial conversations and just getting people to kind of buy into the concept and, you know, what roles are available here and the learning and development opportunities that everyone has here. So
Awesome. I think next question here we'll kind of throw to all three on the panel if whoever would like to take a stab at it, or multiple. What are some of the things you're most excited about for the future of S Media and what that entails?
Sure, yeah, so this year we're looking at rolling out a couple new products. TradeSmart, if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more, I'll be very brief on it. But we do have some spaces, some of the rooms laid out so you can hit play and listen a little bit more and get some more detail. But TradeSmart, essentially what it is it's a dealership website plugin where customers can go ahead and a dealership's customers can go ahead and fill out their vehicle information in the website and get a value on what their trade-in would be worth. And we also take into consideration things like dealership costs, reconditioning costs that the dealership might incur. So we take all of those things into consideration and spit out a value for the customer. We also are building out our customer-facing dashboard, which we'll be using to, Regan talked about our engaged prospect metric a little bit earlier.
Call it digital.
The digital test drive, yeah. So so our dashboard will be able to help our customers understand and show the correlation between our metric and actual sales at their dealership. So it just dives in a little bit heavier on that. So those are the two things I'm really excited about.
So one of the things when it comes down to what I'm really excited for is that, you know, we have some really talented people that are working on our machine learning and our artificial intelligence and our data accumulation, and we have a lot of data. And the more data we have and the smarter our machine learning gets over time, it's really exciting to think that we can start getting really predictive with what cars are going to sell when based on just digital body language, and to be able to give car dealerships reports on these are the cars that are going to sell in this week based on all this historical data, and then this is the money you need to spend to actually get to your sales targets this month. So all of a sudden now they're being proactive with their spends as opposed to being like, oh, we didn't hit our target this month, what do we have to do to pivot to do that next month? So really getting into the predictive analytics and having machine learning that's able to do that for us, that would definitely take us to the next level. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, obviously mine is on the people side of the organization. So over the last year and during my time here, just seeing the involvement of, departments and, scaling the team up 40 plus people across the entire company last year. I think what I'm most excited about this year is just, my department right now is just working on proactively getting ready to scale even more. So looking at onboarding strategies, we're building a new career site. Like those are really fun jobs, and just kind of being at the forefront of attracting good talent to keep growing our amazing team here.
Awesome. Looks like the future looks very bright for S Media, which is super exciting. Obviously, with growth and with rapid growth, comes extremely amazing opportunities, but also likely some challenges. Just wondering if the team could speak a bit to maybe some of the challenges or the biggest challenge you think S Media is preparing for in the future, and what that might look like for you guys as you prepare for that next stage of scaling and growth.
Yeah, talk about it.
So I think that the biggest thing is just staying on top of our remote growth as well, and continuing to build that transparency and get all the teams bought into what we're doing and working collaboratively with them to make sure we can kind of continue to scale out how everything is going right now. But that would be, I guess, my biggest challenge is just kind of staying on top of the remote growth.
Yeah, sure, I can add a few things to that. Yeah, so just to piggyback with what Steph is saying, building product with a development team that is across the world is extremely challenging. So just building out, is there anyone here that's in product? Yeah, one, two, yeah. So there are certain meetings that you have to do that are pretty religious when it comes to product. So just figuring out the best times to actually have those meetings with our teams when we don't share those working hours. I think that just trying to figure out best processes around the development team, I think that's going to be a big challenge for us.
And then from a customer success standpoint, it's really being able to fill all those holes in that leaky bucket to be able to take that churn down to a certain percentage, because if based on how the percentage you lose on a monthly basis, that adds up to a year, right? And constantly having to fill that bucket, and if there's too many leaky holes, then it's really hard to scale, because you have to start replacing your customers, and once you get too big, then that percentage has a bigger hit on your bottom line. So from a scaling standpoint, managing our churn and getting really, really good at that, and which we are making leaps and bounds when it comes down to being able to do that. But the challenge is, how do we, especially in our space, being a tech company in a marketing world, how do we get dealerships to see that their marketing isn't a cost, it is an investment in a very hyper-competitive place where there's a lot of companies that are after our clients, right? So being able to really connect what we're doing and work with the concept of adoption, where we're part of their business strategy, as opposed to we are just sending out advertisements of their cars. And we can explain that, the value over and over again, but there's a certain learning curve with our clients, and we have to figure out how to really hit home immediately as soon as they become clients, how important what we're doing and how important we are to their bottom line.
Awesome. I think it's great to see the three perspectives there, from the product, the people, the customer success and retention piece. Like to hit maybe potentially a question before throwing it back to the audience here, and that is kind of advice based. So if you guys look back at the journey that all three of you have been on, that the company's been on, obviously it's amazing to get to where we are today. Just kind of looking around the space and all the amazing stuff that's here, all the people that have come out to see this. But what advice might you give to your younger self, or maybe some of the people in the crowd who are considering starting their own startup journey, or in the middle of their startup journey? Would love to hear a little bit about that, and what you would share a few years behind where you are today.
Yeah, well, I sometimes struggle with that question, because if I went and told myself some advice, I probably wouldn't have listened anyways, and how, if I wouldn't be where I am today if anything was different. So, but if I were to give myself some advice from my standpoint, I mean, I'm a certain personality type, I've got a certain way of thinking, and I think that one of my, I would go back and tell myself, that the world isn't always ending, and that's really the magnitude of problems that happen. Like, they're usually not as big as you think they are, and I still struggle with that. But it's something that I have to constantly keep reminding myself that look where I am and how far I've come, and all the things that I thought were the end of the world weren't, and I'm a better person because of that adversity.
That's awesome. I think a crucial piece of the startup journey too. So that's really good.
I think for me, I've started my career a long time ago in startups, so everything has been super fast-paced and needs to happen yesterday, always. But the biggest thing for me too is like a little bit spinning off what Regan says, just on the recruitment front, and sometimes you think you have that $1 million person that the company needs and it doesn't work out. Not to take things personally, because there are a lot of fish in the sea, and obviously they did not see the fit and the value, and somebody else is more out there. But I used to take everything quite personally if something didn't work out or someone didn't work out. So that would be the biggest thing for me.
Mine would have to be embrace the uncomfortable. It's super cliche as I say that, but it is so true. It is so true, honestly. I was a pretty big introvert growing up, and I think it's just getting out of your comfort zone, getting out and doing things. Like, I wouldn't have taken this risk. It is a risk starting a business, and I think just getting out of your bubble and just doing it, you'll be better for it, trust me.
That's awesome. I think great advice from you guys, and probably a good opportunity for us to throw it out to the audience here. I'd love to open up some questions here. You can maybe toss around the mic, or use your indoor-outdoor voices here as well. I think we got one in the front, and maybe one right there with your hand out. I'll maybe just toss the mic to you guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much for the presentation. My question is, recently there's been a movement against ad tech companies and data companies. Point in case is that of the smart city in Toronto, and also Google facing some challenges in Europe in setting up their companies. So I want to know what S Media strategy is relating to privacy and surveillance.
Sure. So that is a good question. We are a Facebook channel partner for automotive, and a Google Premier partner, so we do have that support, and we are obviously expressing concern with that. But what we do things a little bit more uniquely, because the way that we track people's behavior, we don't identify these people to an IP or a person. So when the whole Cambridge Analytica issue happened in the States, and Facebook, and like that whole issue with the data breach of privacy there, that actually, so in Canada the privacy laws are a lot stricter with respect to the digital footprint that people leave, and so we optimized our strategies to be able to connect behaviors, not people, to car sales, and by optimizing for that strategy, because we're in Canada first, then by going in the States, that actually gave us a really big advantage over the US companies that were using all that third-party data to be able to target. So when it comes down to the newest issues with the pixels and stuff, we're still working on that one.
Yeah, so I can add to that question. If you want to, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm going through this whole process with Facebook Automotive right now and Google, so I can keep you up to date with anything I can find out if you're interested. But yeah, so we're still in the middle of going through all of that stuff with them, so we can connect after.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you. I was just curious, since you've neatly explained how you utilize your remote staff, but I was wondering how your product management team manages the difference between the time difference between head office and the development team in reference to quality and training, as well as how you foster a growth mindset among your local and remote staff.
Yeah, so that is extremely challenging. It's just, what we do is there is some flexibility that has to be had. So our development team will sometimes stay up later at night, and then we'll come in early in the morning. We're very, very flexible on that. We actually have our retrospective meeting on a Monday. So like the Monday this holiday. So like people are working holidays, so everybody, the whole team is extremely flexible to actually get the work done. Constant communication, we're on Slack 24/7. I know I'm up sometimes at like 3 in the morning, just communicating back and forth with them, making sure that we're, so we do use Jira as our project management tool, so just for reference on that.
Okay. And what about the growth mindset, local and remote staff?
Yeah, so are you referring to how are we going to scale that team over there? Like, what are the challenges with that?
Yeah, how do you go about fostering their mindsets in a way that have them kind of feel like they're still a part of the team and focus on their own growth and following that route?
Yeah, for sure. So we have we do something like, normally there's a scrum master within the team, so we have somebody here that is purposely trying to engage with that team and work with them consistently all the time, making sure that they're following all the processes that we've lined up, all of those types of things. We kind of make it mandatory that you have to attend every single meeting, right? Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts on this. Because of the time difference, there's no exceptions, right?
Okay.
So
if they're working on the hours of your production team, say,
I'll let you ask that in there.
oh, sure.
yeah.
So if your scrum master or whoever is kind of following the hours of your production team across seas and working those hours, how do you communicate with that scrum master? How do you sort of, I feel like I already
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so like there is regular meetings between both teams. So the scrum master will meet with the development team on a regular basis. Like they have their daily stand-ups, we do stuff, our daily stand-ups are all done through Slack. So they write out the things like, what are they doing today, what are we doing tomorrow, any blockers, impediments that are stopping them from actually doing their work. All that stuff is done through Slack. They have their own stand-up meetings there. And all that stuff is just, it's just putting in a lot of process and making sure that they're following it. So, yeah. Right, yeah, and we split up the teams per product as well. So
Okay. So you have to have an overlap between those hours between yourselves and your scrum master then?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There is some overtime that has to be done, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about the work-life balance.
Product is a little bit different, but like, yeah, there's definitely a lot more that needs to go into it.
Hi, back here. I just brought up work-life balance because you just said, we're on Slack 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 3 a.m. And just hearing about things being needed to be done yesterday and all the remote work, how do you ensure the health of your staff and yourselves and prevent job burnout?
All right.
We upload everybody's consciousness. Machine learning.
So I'm going to use myself as an example here. So I'm a mom of 2. I have 2 small kids, 5.5 and 2. So for me, coming into the startup world, coming off maternity leave, that was a big thing. It's a commitment to start. It's a commitment to come into this startup world where we all love and thrive, you know, we're building, we have these values here that we follow on accountability, responsibility, and freedom. Regan kind of spoke to those before. You're responsible to get your work done. It doesn't matter that it happens between 8 and 5. You know, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have to pick up my child or drop my child off at kindergarten at 9 a.m. and I need to be out of the office at 3. I literally have a timer on my phone that goes off at 2:50 to remind me. And basically, I still get my job done. And you know, we are all accountable. We are all accountable, and we provide the freedom for our team to basically follow with that. So if somebody is up till 3 a.m. on Slack dealing with our development team, they can sleep in the morning and come in, you know, the next day at 11 o'clock just because they had a later night. So we're 100% flexible, and you know, doctor's appointments, whatnot. There's not, you know, you need to come into work 10 minutes early to leave 10 minutes early at the end of the day. That is a process that is not followed here. It's basically just holding everyone accountable to get their job done.
And one thing to add on that, great answer, Stephanie. I've always thought about like what is the work-life balance, and when we think of work and life as a balance, we see a teeter-totter sort of. But the way that I've kind of seen my entrepreneurial journey is the yin-yang concept where work is integrated into my life and life is integrated into my work, and it's all just kind of one healthy organism in my life. Cindy, why are you laughing at me? I can start talking about quantum physics and interdimensional. Anyways, hopefully that was a nice Zen answer for you, Cindy. Okay, got another question. Oh, before I make this any more awkward, Aziz, go ahead.
Thanks. Any plans to expand outside of the automotive sector? Your plate's pretty full.
Definitely plans. We have our so the state of brick and mortar retail. That is like the problem that we solve in this. Brick and mortar is like a kind of an umbrella concept, and then automotive follows under that. But so does RV dealerships, and so does heavy equipment, and so do motorcycles and telecommunications, like cell phones, electronics, all that stuff. We have the ability to track those behaviors and connect them. We already are in a way, but we haven't pushed too far, but we are exploring that. But we launched a search engine called Vrumance, Fall in Love with Your Next Car, and it is the largest car search engine in the world. And the vision for that is really to be the largest search engine for retail in the world. So TVs, phones, cars, everything. I mean, it's not going to be called Vrumance at that point, but we created a crawler to crawl the internet like Google does and find like how many 18 million vehicles. And to put that in context, like that's more than all the major Auto Trader and all those cars.com all combined. But that technology can apply to retail. Basically, we have the ability to provide a great customer experience and make it really easy for people to find what they want locally in the retail space.
So I appreciate your guys' culture because I love freedom. I think that's great. What I'm wondering is, how do you guys keep people accountable? Is there ramifications if you don't? Is it you guys have a culture where it's like, hey, it's been great, see you later? Do you guys work on people to get that better? But I'm just really trying to see when you set a target, how do you get them to hit that consistently?
Yeah, so with it being kind of a sales organization, obviously there are metrics in place that we want people to be hitting. And as an employer, you know, we rolled out this thing we call the Keepers Test. And if you actually Google it, it sounds extremely, extremely harsh, but it's all in how it's delivered. So basically, we implemented that just about a year ago within all of our teams. And the accountability piece is basically we are, as an employer, we're bringing on the right people. We're focusing our efforts on bringing in the right people to help people kind of develop themselves by working with other smart people or brilliant colleagues, we call them, and providing the training and the coaching to get people where they need to be. Obviously, it's not going to work all the time. So if we feel like we've taxed out our efforts, obviously we would help find the person a good landing spot elsewhere and support them. But we really we hold everyone accountable to a point where they should have full transparency within their team. So they could go to their manager and say, if I tried to leave tomorrow, would you fight hard to keep me? And we're constantly striving to make that answer always a yes, and vice versa. So everyone on their team should know where they stand at all times, and we just basically work with them to help them get there.
Cool, thanks.
I have one thing to add to that too. The keeper's test is, obviously you mentioned, Stephanie outlined, like, would I fight hard to keep this person? But as a director or a manager, if I would fight hard to keep that person, I also have to fight hard to understand how to help them grow and succeed within the company. If they're not hitting those targets, if I'm going to fight for them, I have to invest in them. And everyone has their own journey, and it's our responsibility that if we're going to fight for them, that it's our responsibility. And of course there, it's a two-way street, but the real goal is to help them grow into their spot and succeed, basically.
Do you make it sorry, I have one more.
Yeah.
Do you guys, do you guys make it transparent, the metrics? So I know what Kyle's doing, and Kyle knows what I'm doing, everybody knows what everybody's doing.
From a sales standpoint?
Sure, metrics.
Yes. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Everybody knows each individual.
Each individual can see the sales numbers monthly basis or annual. It's all within our CRM and shared spreadsheets where we can see those metrics.
Cool.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do every Friday is we have what we call story time, and we've recently had to change it up a little bit just because there's too many of us and it was dragging on and on. But originally, we implemented it for each team member, so we all get on Google Hangouts, even though we sit beside each other. We have some of our remote team chime in there, but we basically go around the table and talk about our week and what our weekly wins are, what challenges we faced, any new initiatives that we're rolling out, and just really get that support. And basically you're holding yourself accountable to the team. So there are a lot of people, probably when I started here, and they're like, what the hell does a people and culture person do? So I really relied on those meetings, and that's how I held myself accountable, I guess, to the team. So we still do that, but we do it on a department base now. So we kind of flip-flop. One person represents each department. Those departments meet together before and just, what do we want to share? If they hit sales goals or whatnot, that gets shared in a company-wide meeting.
Yeah, and how do those, so like when we share that stuff, we really want to tie in, like, what are we doing to improve certain KPIs of our company, what's important of a company from a vision standpoint, like our vision, how does it contribute to our vision, and then also how does it contribute to key performance metrics? So like our churn, how is it going to help us decrease our churn? How is it going to help us increase our expansion revenue or our sales? It all aligns with kind of the main metrics of success of our company.
That's awesome. I think we might stop questions there. I know the S Media team will be hanging out here. There's tons of food, drink, everything. So maybe before we pass it over for any closing comments, I think it'd be awesome if we give a huge round of applause to our three speakers tonight for telling their story. With that, I'll kind of toss it over to you guys if there's any sort of closing comments or next step, if it's food and drink time.
Thanks so much for coming, everybody. This has been a very pleasant surprise to see you guys all come here and support. Hopefully you've learned something and you can take something back with you that can help you in whatever your goals and aspirations and whatever you're doing that you want to achieve success in. So thanks again, and really appreciate you coming.
To kind of go off that, we do appreciate the support, so thank you. I just do want to mention, if somebody is interested, we have the rooms set up along the side. So if you have some burning questions about our EPM or
Digital test drive.
digital test drive.
Can't do that. It's a whole marketing thing. We still haven't, we haven't even.
I haven't even got it.
Yeah. He's in our product. So.
And then TradeSmart, if you guys want to know a little bit more, we do have some rooms set up that you basically just go in there. We have some videos and just find somebody in an S Media shirt to explain it a little bit more for you. So, but yeah, come grab one of us, grab a drink, and yeah, thanks again for coming out.
Fine. Last one. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.